Morning, everyone. Well, it's another day in the life. And another question. Actually, Allison said I should do a video on this. I thought I had done a video on this a while back, but I was wondering how many of y'all out there drink coffee, and what coffees have you found that you find that are good to drink? I found personally that, well, she said I should do a video on coffees. But I don't have any coffee in my hand at the moment, but I'll tell you some of the things I've figured out about coffees. I have a relative, he's a big aficionado of coffee. He gets all the fancy coffees and the expensive coffees and just the exotic stuff. And I don't take quite that same route with coffee that he does. In my experience, I've been trying and trying to find a good basic coffee that a person can get, that when you put it through your machine, it doesn't taste like motor oil coming out so bitter that you want to just spit it on the floor. But there again, coffees that are so underdeveloped. I don't like coffees that no matter how much of it you put in the machine, it comes out like dishwater, no flavor, nothing. It's like you can taste the paper of the filter that it was, that it was put in. And just wanting to know what y'all thought about it. Coffees that you found. I'll tell you some of the things I've discovered about coffees. I've tried a lot of the major brands, a few of them, not a ton of them. But like I've done pretty much all the different roasts of Folgers, and I've done the let's see, I did Coffee Del Monde. It has chicory in it, and there's a couple of other ones. I've done Maxwell, all the big brands. I've done all of those, and then I started on a quest to find a good cheap coffee, because one of the things I discovered by accident, I ran out of a name brand coffee that I had, and I was in the lurch. And I didn't have a lot of change in my pocket, so I went. Where was it? Where was that place? I think it was HEB Coffee. I've tried them all, but the HEB coffee surprised me for a super cheap coffee. It wasn't bad. And I've tried the Kroger brand coffees, which aren't bad either. They're a little bland, but But I started to figure out that just because it doesn't have a big name brand on it doesn't mean it's not good, or it doesn't mean that it's bad. I found in my experience playing with different coffees that even some cheap brands, I mean some dirt cheap brands, are actually pretty good. I don't like the dollar store brand coffee. I mean, well, depending on what you get. The Wake Up blend is okay, I guess, but some coffee, when you run it through a brewer, just don't smell right. As Allison put it when I was brewing that stuff, it smelled like an old man's jockstrap, or maybe sweaty underwear, But, and then you'll get some cheap coffees. Like, for instance, I'll tell you a real good one, and it grew on me. I didn't really care for it at first when I got it, but as I've been using it, I start to notice the little subtleties in it. Aldi coffee surprises the heck out of me. I thought, okay, this can't be that good, And for a while, I wasn't crazy about it. But I started brewing. I have a little single cup coffee maker in there, and I started brewing it. And I found that once I got the mix right, it actually is pretty good. It has a lot of subtle little flavors in it. A friend of mine said it best. It has a nutty flavor to it. It's not bitter, and it's not washed out. It's just, it is what it is. It has its own characteristics. That's the word I'm looking for. And I find that I'm liking that stuff, but not near as much. And I'll tell you, a good brand coffee, I was actually pleasantly surprised because it had the word Folgers on it. I'm not crazy about a lot of Folgers coffees. You know, I've been burned on a lot of them because they're almost always bitter or, but I've got this little thing. I forget if I bought it or somebody bought it for me. It's Folgers Black Silk, I think is what it's called. Surprised the heck out of me because they have like light. You know, they have the little graph on the front that says light, medium, dark. Well, this stuff is like darker. You know, they actually added a bar. They added a little category of its own for that stuff. It's not their dark roast. It's the darker than dark roast. You know. So I'm thinking, oh God, this is gonna be like motor oil, or it's gonna be like paint thinner. You know, because most dark roast coffees, you know, they get more bitter. They get more bitter the darker they get. I've discovered on some of those, especially the canned coffees. And so I said, well, we're going to take a shot of it. We're going to try it. And I put some through the coffee maker. And it surprised the heck out of me. You know, I couldn't believe this came out of a can, you know. It was dark, but it was not bitter. It was full-bodied. It had a very, very smooth flavor, but it wasn't underdeveloped. It wasn't like drinking dishwater, as I put it earlier. It was a reasonably good coffee. So at that point, I'm like, well, this is what I'll get to keep in the fridge and use, you know. But that stuff ain't cheap. So I got that, and then the way I discovered the Aldi coffee was I had to go on a trip. I put a little bit of that Black Silk in a mason jar. I took it with me, just a tiny half-pint jar, and I used it up because I was sharing it. So I went and I got some Aldi coffee, and I think it was like $2.40 for a standard size can. It's not the big can, but like the regular size can, you know. And I don't mind it. Now, the weird thing about it, though, is at different stages of its existence from the time you buy it, it takes on different aromatic characteristics and slightly different flavor. The best thing to do when you get it is keep it in the freezer. From the very first day you open it, throw it in the freezer because it's in a paper can. They're all doing these paper cans now that have no use beyond what it was meant for with the coffee, which kind of sucks. I like the old metal cans because you could make stuff out of them, you know. You had good raw material, or you could use them for storage, you know, or if you had some cooking oil that was hot, you could pour it in there and store it until you could dispose of it, you know. But these new, it's actually more wasteful, I think, go into these paper cans, because when you have the metal cans, yeah, it uses some resources, but if you're frugal and you have ingenuity, those metal cans, you can use those for a lot of other things. So I would say the greener product is the metal can, because the paper can just gets thrown in the trash. You know, if you're resourceful, you can make a lot of use out of a metal can. Well, that's on another tangent. But anyway, I was pleasantly surprised with the Aldi coffee. It's not a bad product. I would say, you know, you're saving quite a bit over the cost of name brand, and you're getting a good wake-up blend. And they have it in the bigger cans. I didn't price the bigger cans, but I know they're a lot cheaper than the name brand stuff. And if you like a mild roast coffee, you know, a classic roast, it's not bad. If you like a dark roast, I don't know that they do a dark roast. They might do a dark roast. I went for the red can because I wanted to see what the standard roast coffee tastes like. So I was not disappointed. So yeah, out there are, even in the cheap stuff, there's good stuff. You know, it's the beauty of coffee and the beauty of sampling all those different coffees is, it's like a quest. You're trying to find the stuff that's good, the good stuff. You know, what's good and what's junk. And it's an experience. It's a changing experience because you never know what you're going to get. You never know what you're going to get from one to the next, depending on who makes it. You know, some of that stuff is really good. I love Cafe Del Monde. That was my first experience with chicory coffee. It has such a nice taste. It's bitter to some people, but I like the chicory. It's not bad. It'll make you pee a lot. Excuse my crudeness, but you don't want to be out somewhere where you can't find a restroom if you drink a lot of that stuff, because it'll go through you like a can of beer. But good stuff, you know. I like chicory coffee. And there's other ones. I've tried, oh God, what is that? Hazelnut. I had some hazelnut coffee it was pretty good. I don't know. I don't like all them fancy. The only fancy coffee I've ever really liked, I like French vanilla type. And the mochas, you know, most of the mocha coffees are pretty good. I've gotten some things from Starbucks, which everybody's gotten some things from Starbucks, but you shouldn't base your standards of quality in coffee on Starbucks type things. Get out there and find a coffee that you really like, you know, and just have your regular coffee, you know, that you really like. And then every once in a while, get you a can of something different and give it a try. You know, it's like a fine cigar. You know, you have your base one that you really like, your everyday. And every once in a while, you know, try a different one. Sometimes you find a cigar that's really, really good, or maybe you'll find, if you smoke a pipe, you'll find a tobacco that's really awesome. I don't smoke a lot anymore. I mean, if somebody brings me a nice cigar, I'll smoke on that, but I don't go out and buy them, you know, not all the time. Um, I don't advocate smoking, but you know, if you have things you like, well, anyway. But getting to the point, you know, that was the whole thing. So what I'll do every once in a while, when I get new coffees, I'll review them. I'll put them here on the site, and I'll let you know. The thing about doing these kind of things, and the reason I'm kind of antsy about doing like food reviews and drink reviews and things like that, is everybody's tastes are different. What might taste good to me might taste like total crap to you, or the guy down the street, or, you know, it just depends on what you like. I like coffee that's a bit on the mellow, full-bodied side, but I don't really like it super bitter. You know, there are some things I like to eat that are bitter, but not coffee. That's just disgusting, at least in my opinion. Some people like bitter coffee. Some people like it so bitter that it can peel the paint off their walls. So, you know, the reviews I'll be doing on coffee, that'll be subjective, you know, and it'll be up to you whether you want to try it or not. That's the other reason why you can't really depend a lot on food critics, you know. Food critics have their own sense of taste. So what a food critic might say, oh, this is the best restaurant ever. You go in there and you eat it. Hey, this tastes like a plastic dog turd, you know. So, you know, what the heck was that critic thinking, you know. So we'll be as subjective as we can, you know. But those are the ones right now that I'd have to say I've been really impressed with. One that I would recommend, depending on your taste, if you like a mellow coffee with not so much bitter in it, give the Black Silk a try. It's the only name brand I really care for, you know. If you want a good wake-up blend that doesn't cost a fortune, you can go with the HEB coffee. It's pretty good. And it's not going to make you jump out of your chair and go, yeah, you know. But the one I found that I really like is the Aldi coffee, which kind of sucks because there's not an Aldi anywhere near us. There's one down in Houston when I go down there, so I might get a few cans and bring them back, because it's a good, cheap coffee. It's a good, cheap coffee. It's not like Coffee Gourmet, but it's like if you want something good that smells good in the morning when you brew it and has a decent amount of taste in it, when you get the concentration right. Yeah, and there's all sorts of other factors that influence coffee that a lot of people don't think about. I had a coffee maker once that could not make a strong cup of coffee. It just could not. Your coffee maker has a lot to do with the outcome of your coffee as well. And some people say, well, pour more coffee in there. Not necessarily. There's other factors in there besides strong and weak. Did you know that the length of time that water sits in the grounds. Supposedly you don't want it to sit in the grounds more than 8 minutes. If your coffee maker takes more than 8 minutes to brew what you're wanting to drink, then there's a rate of extraction. The golden cup standard, and it's true across all other standards, but the European standard, the gold cup standard, between 18 and 22% extraction is what you want. Yeah, there's lots of weird science. I think it's overkill, but who knows. 18 and 22%. You don't want it to extract more than 22% because 22% is getting you on the bitter side, and 18% is getting you on the dishwater side. So the amount of time, it also is related to the amount of time the water sits in the grounds. Your coffee is going to get more and more bitter the longer the water takes, or the longer those grounds are being poured through with water. You don't want it to sit in there longer than 8 minutes, according to them. And that's what makes some single cup makers really good. You can, I got a little rival in there that I got at Wally World. Paid $8 for it, but it's not a Keurig. I didn't pay over $100 for something that's going to run for a year and then crap out or go obsolete the minute they decide that K-cups are not the in thing anymore. Tassimo. Yeah. It's just a little brewer, like a Mr. Coffee, It just brews a mug full instead of a carafe full. And because it does that, it does it in minutes. Just a little bit of time. At maximum, I think a full-size travel mug takes maybe 5 minutes. How hard up are you for coffee? You can't wait 5 minutes, And it does a good job. I think it brews at just the right rate. And when you have a good coffee in there, that's well roasted and well ground with a good consistency, it makes a good cup of coffee. It's the best cheap little coffee maker I've ever gotten. And I've got several others. I got a little 4-cup Mr. Coffee. It makes coffee so strong you can't even put it in your mouth. You spit it out in the sink if you're not careful. You have to really weaken the things, but it's because of the time involved in brewing it, So there are a lot of factors that play in with the taste of coffee. And I always thought coffee was supposed to be kind of bitter, but then I started reading up and I found out, no, it's not necessarily supposed to be bitter. If you're drinking a coffee that's uber bitter, then it was brewed wrong. Coffee should have a woody, nutty, kind of mellowish taste. It'll have a little bitter in it. But the point of getting the brew time and the water temperature correct, a coffee maker that brews with hot water makes all the difference. There's a temperature range in getting the proper extraction and getting the proper things in the coffee being extracted out. A good cup of coffee maybe have a little bitterness. You can't get around it, but it should be a mellow flavor. I've had coffees that is almost like you were drinking pecan. You know what I mean? Just tastes like you were drinking pecans. It's just so full of body. What happens in the brewing process, if it's brewing right, there's a conversion that occurs that some of what's pulled out of the coffee becomes glucose. It starts pulling the sugars out of the bean. Good coffee, unless you're a sugar fiend and you really love stuff sweet, it should have a mellow, almost barely noticeable sweet kind of taste to it. You'll have the little bit of bitter, but you should have a little bit of body and some sweet in it. When you get it right in that sweet spot of how it should be brewed, and there are actually graphs. I can't believe they actually did this, but there's actually scientific graphs. Excuse me. There's actually scientific graphs as to a good cup of coffee, where it should brew, concentration, water heat, time, and all this and that and the other. It all looks like rocket science. It's easy to make out, though. After you kind of study it a bit, you start to figure out what they're trying to say in it, But Yeah, experiment. Like I said, get you a good standard coffee and then just start trying different brands, different things. I think you'd be surprised the vast range of just regular coffees there are out there. And every little outfit has their own way of roasting it and chopping it and setting it up. So one is definitely not like the other. If you just want gas station coffee, yeah, I guess one is pretty much like the other. But when you're brewing it yourself, you can exercise a bit more discretion, and you can play the field a bit and figure out what you like. You know. So the first, I think this is maybe the second time I've ever talked about coffee, and I may have said a lot of the same things. So this time I've done a bit more studying and kind of dug a little bit more into the world of coffee connoisseur. I don't know, coffeedom. But there's some good stuff. There's some good stuff out there, and there's some really crappy stuff. So yeah, whatever coffee, tell me. I'm really curious to know, and I want to know what is the best coffee you ever had, and why was it the best coffee you ever had? What are your tastes in coffee? What do you look for when you get a hot cup of coffee? What are the tastes you're looking for, and what are you looking for in a cup of coffee, and what coffees have you found? Because I'll try them. If I can get my hands on them, if you suggest something that you found that was really good, I'll try it. I'll review it. I'll happily review it. Hey, it's video material and it helps other people to make a decision. But that's about it for this one. I'll be uploading this tonight. I don't know what time it is. I think it's like 1 o'clock now. I have to upload everything around midnight, because one of the bad things about satellite is your bandwidth is very limited during the day till you hit that free zone at night. It's almost like having cellular internet in a lot of ways. But another tangent. We won't get off on that. So yeah, leave a comment below and tell me what coffees did you find that were bad? What coffees did you find that were good, and why? And if you have one that you want to recommend, drop it in the comments below and let other people know. As like I said, if I can get my hands on it, I'll review it here. I'll brew it and I'll give it a shot. And we'll see. So, y'all have a good one, YouTube, and I guess I'll be seeing you in the next video. Take care.